A virgin can have sex for the first time and catch a whole HIV. Jealousy is a waste of time. Where'd you get that from? This old thing. No, that is new, babe. Where's it from? Just blowing out their mouth like a dragon. Hello there, beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you are doing well. Today, I wanted to talk about the things that a lot of us as women sometimes do not talk about. And there are so many reasons as to why that is. And I wanted to explore that, but also talk about why I actually think it is a good thing to actually talk about. I'm gonna get very real. I'm gonna get into some details here. I asked people on my social what they think about it, like on Instagram. And some of the responses were wow. They were really wow. So I really wanted to get into it. If you are someone who is sensitive, if you are someone who doesn't like to hear truth about stuff, this video will not be for you. However, if you are someone who understands the importance of actually women and us speaking up a little bit more and also like dealing with ish for real, this video will be for you. And I want you to leave me comments if you agree, whether you disagree. I want to know what you think, okay? Right, let's get into this video. So number one of the first things, you guys know I love talking about money. I like talking about finances because it's something that I think is really important. I feel like women need to be financially independent and also educated. And there's a huge lack in that realm, which is why, ding, I have my new channel, The Break, where I will be talking a lot more stuff like that. I don't know if content's on it yet. It should be here very soon, but you can check that out in the link in the description bar below if you are interested in improving your financial situation, learning more about finance, learning more about investment, and also just improving your life. That's a quick shout out. But I really wanted to talk about why women do not talk about money and salaries. I am British. You know what we are like. We are this impolite conversation. You don't bring it up. We don't talk about it. No. Women don't need to talk about that. Oh, you're being too boastful. All this and all that. And I realized there was a lot of stigma, especially around women, to talk about their money, their salaries, their earnings, how they run their business, all that kind of stuff. I was wondering if this was to do with society and it wanting to limit what we actually do. Like conspiracy theory, hello, they don't want us to be great. But I asked you guys what reasons you thought it was as to why women don't necessarily talk about their salaries and stuff like that. And I got some interesting responses. A lot of people brought up jealousy, or that they didn't want people to know what they had just in case it made them a target. The fact that they were embarrassed because maybe they didn't feel like they were earning enough in comparison to others. People brought up the fact that they're told not to talk about it. It's rude and impolite. It was brought up that it could be considered braggy. It's not a societal norm. And someone just said, because of men. Now, from my perspective, I used to work in the finance industry, as you guys know, like I've talked about it so many times. And I found that the boys, especially when I was interning, they would talk about their sign-on bonuses, how they spent their money, what salary that they were getting. When people were offered new jobs, they would say, oh yeah, I'm getting 70 grand a year, I'm getting 100 grand a year. They would be confident enough to say these things. And I noticed that it was almost quite whispery for the girls to talk about it. The guys would boast, the girls wouldn't bring it up. And for me, I've realized the importance of actually talking about stuff like that. There is a reason, I think, why they don't want us. They don't want us to talk about this stuff, because I really think there's this idea of limiting women's mindsets when it comes to earning and actually being financially independent. But shout out to us, because actually we are starting to out earn men. Because we're the smartest and we can multitask. But for anyone who is still on the fence about it, I wanted to share some of the reasons why I think it is a good idea to do so. One, it's really helpful to help you benchmark and work out what your value is. In lots of industries, you know what the average salary is or what sign-on bonuses are. For someone who's being self-employed, I found that the more that there were very few girls who wanted to share this kind of stuff, the more it gave me an idea of what my worth was. And I have a story that I shared so many times where I was having a conversation with someone in the industry with me, and she was beautiful enough to share with me how much she made a month. Not in a braggy way. I think we were talking about someone else, like, God, that person makes, whatever, £1 million a month or whatever. And then she said, well, I was like, how can someone make a certain amount of money a month? It was mind blowing. My mind was so small, I couldn't believe it was possible. Say the number was 100 grand a month, right? And then she mentioned to me that she made £40,000 a month or £3,000 a month, or just give it an arbitrary number, which at the time was 10 times more than what I was making per month. And it really, really made me step my game up and say, well, no, clearly I'm undervalued at this point in time. I had no concept of what my value was, but just by that person sharing a little bit of information to me, it gave me a drive. It gave me an insight into what my benchmark was and to give me an idea of what my value was. And it took me probably about 7 months to actually then make that same amount of money, because I had a target, and I found that something that was really, really pivotal in my life and actually in building my business. Actually, that's the second point. It actually helps you strive for more. A lot of people mention this idea of jealousy, and I've always said this, I hate the idea of jealousy. Jealousy is a waste of time. Like, it's mentally and emotionally unvaluable to you. Being worried about somebody else, what does that add to you? It's actually taking up your brain space. So I always use information as fuel. And so, as I mentioned in that story, it really gave me a benchmark to work towards. And it said, okay, if she can do this, I'm as good, I can do this. And so I strove for more and was able to reach and surpass that monthly earning number because of her informing me. It also helps to improve an industry and also set a standard. There's a lot of injustice going on financially and in so many different things because nobody talks about it. And you know what? Employers don't want you to talk about it. Companies don't want you to talk about it. Why do people not want you to talk about stuff? Sometimes because they can undercut and undervalue people. If you don't know, how are you going to ask? And so I feel like it's really important, especially for women, to talk about this stuff, to actually bring more value to themselves in the long run. And I am someone who is not embarrassed. I like talking about numbers. Maybe it's because my background was accounting and finance and all that kind of jazz. And I consider myself to be someone who is on my A game, and I've had to learn. I've made so many damn mistakes that I'm like, no, don't do this, do this. And finally, it's really helpful to others. Again, I mentioned that story that I had because it really opened my eyes and changed my mindset. Didn't make me feel jealous. It made me feel bigger and better and actually gave me hope that I had the same potential. If you feel embarrassed about what you're earning or what you're doing and your level of success, you have to remember that it's not forever. We've all been broke. Like, come on, it's been noodles and sweet corn for many of us. Okay, we've done that, but that doesn't last forever. So I think realizing that actually that acceptance of today will help you have like a better tomorrow is really, really valuable. And it's very difficult to take control of your financial situation if you're not able to talk about it, even if it's to yourself and people that you trust. I think it's worthwhile sharing because it makes such a big difference. Number 2, let's talk about it. STDs. I really wanted to bring up this topic, and I'm sure it makes some of you guys shiver and shudder at the thought of a sexual transmitted disease. I used to love the show Embarrassing Bodies because, actually no, I don't think they ever brought anyone up who had an STD, but there was something of like the clinic or something that came up on TV. And I remember watching this stuff in awe because who knew what kind of diseases you could have down below? People don't talk about STDs if they've had them. People don't talk about if when they're about to do it with someone. Have you got an STD? Have you been tested? Like, there's almost this like embarrassment around talking about it. And some of you guys' responses were in relation to one, that if you've had an STD, you could be labeled as being promiscuous. People fear being judged, being labeled. There's stigma and shame associated with having an STD. Some people just said you'd be branded as a hoe and loose. And I think that, is that still a thing? I feel like that shouldn't really be a thing anymore. In reality, A virgin can have sex for the first time and catch a whole HIV. It's definitely happened. And there are girls who can have 100 sexual partners and be very, very lucky and not end up with anything. Whether or not you're considered promiscuous or not, having an STD does not relate to that. In reality, an STD is a disease. It's something similar to having a broken bone, like having an infection, like stubbing your toe. It's the same thing. And I really think it's important to talk about STDs more, because I do think sexual education is really, really important. Like, we need to talk about this a lot more, because people are not informed and people are out here wild. They think, oh, they're worried mainly about not getting pregnant, but really out here you're impacting your whole entire internal organisms. And I actually recently had a conversation on my podcast that should be coming out very, very soon with a fertility expert, and she talked about how many women are having difficulty when it comes to having children in the long run, because they didn't realize that that little chlamydia you had sitting there, that gonorrhea you had sitting there, impacts your fertility in the long run. So getting tested regularly, talking about it with your friends regularly is something that is very, very important, because of the impact it has on your entire health. And a lot of them, especially when it comes to women, there aren't strong symptoms, or some of the symptoms are so embarrassing they don't want to tell anybody about it. But ladies, we need to talk about it. If you've had them, share your stories, good and bad. If you're having treatment, share your stories, good and bad. Of course, you want to do it in a safe space with people who you trust and know won't share your business around. And also, I want to share that the growing rate of people with HIV and lots of disorders, sexual transmitted disorders, are actually within the Black and Latino community. And women, we are the ones who are being impacted. Like, it's not just gay men anymore. We're getting a lot of these diseases because guess what? We're not talking about it. You better share that information and keep yourself wrapped up. Protection is key. Now, sticking to that same subject, is actually about body count. Body count is something that I feel like most people lie, and there's like this magic number of, I've only slept with like 7 people. And I think that it's also the opposite end of the spectrum. So there's body count, having a high body count, or being sexually liberated, versus being a virgin, or even someone who is practicing abstinence or celibacy. These things are always looked at as very weird and very polar opposite, and like one camp is judging another camp. A lot of people mention that people's virginity was where they were deemed as valuable. People mention the fact that you can be looked at as promiscuous. People are told that women aren't really meant to enjoy stuff sexually or even explore that part of themselves. And in reality, I think it's not that important to talk about. Let me be real. You don't need to tell anybody anything. It's none of their business. However, I think the way that men can gloat about what they do or don't do, I think it's important for women to be able to have confidence in what they do or don't do as well. And body count is nothing to be ashamed of, nor is being a virgin. Shout out to the 28-year-old virgins. I know a few. I also myself for a season practiced abstinence. I know, but I'm a married woman now, so we're not doing that. And I think there's this element of judginess. And I think as women, we need to stop judging and start listening to other people's stories. If you're someone who's got a high body count, you might have some stories. You might be able to do some teachings, give some lessons on how you throw it back. And if you're someone who's abstinent, you might be able to teach someone how to control themselves to, chill out. And some people are having some emotional issues because they be out there busting it wide open for every Tom, Dick and Harry who isn't actually making their life any better. But if we feel comfortable enough to talk about it, we can actually deal with some of those issues. There is no shame in doing what you do or doing what you do not do. So next up, I wanted to talk about failures and why women don't necessarily talk about their public and private failures. And this is one of my favorite things to talk about. Some people know that one of my mantras is fail fast. I got that from a mentor who was just like, just do stuff, just try it, and if you fail, whatever. It was a guy who told me that. And it was really something that changed my mind. And I'm gonna caveat by saying that I know I've got some assumptions of why people don't talk about it, but some people told me that, yeah, they do talk about it. They're just careful how and where they do it. People mentioned the reason why they don't talk about their failures because they were scared that people might throw it back in their face, that women are supposed to look strong and put together all the time and not to look too weak. People are scared about competition and that they don't want to look worse than the other woman, so they won't talk about it. Now, why I love talking about failure and mistakes is because literally, I don't think a failure is ever really a failure. Ish in life goes wrong, goes so wrong all the time. All the time, people. And the challenge in life is being able to jump over that failure and continue after that failure. So many things go wrong for me, have gone wrong for me, and so many things have gone right for me. But for every single failure that I've had, I've actually learned something. I'm actually hyper aware because I can see a mistake when it's about to come. And that is the benefit of when a failure happens. The thing about sharing failures is that if you've made a certain mistake, right, with a guy, with the work, with something, you made a bad decision, you are able to tell a girlfriend, a boyfriend, someone, don't do that. I did that and this is what the result was. Don't feel embarrassed. You might even still be working through the failure. Like right now, it's not working. My relationship is not working. And someone might be able to provide you with some insight and encouragement and some advice. And yes, there is that fear that someone might throw it back in your face, but there's also the fear that someone might have a really good solution for you. I found that trying to deal with things solely on my own isn't always the best way to get the results that I want. And actually, a problem shared, as they say, is a problem halved, which I found to be true so many times. Failure is not an end point. It's literally a springboard and lessons that will take you to the next place that you need to go to. We all fail. I have fallen flat so many times. Pew, pew, pew. I have a lot of them. 2018 was that year of a lot of failures. I learned from them. They made me bigger, better, stronger, wiser. And in hindsight, I look back and I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I can handle this. And so, yeah, don't be afraid to talk about them, people. This one here, why don't us women talk about our dreams, our visions, and our aspirations? You hear men all the time, this smoke, just blowing out their mouth like a dragon. I'm doing this thing, I got this idea, I'm doing this thing. I don't know if you've ever been around guys like that. You're like, oh really? Oh, really? You very rarely get that same energy from women. It might be the circle I'm in. And actually, I do have some girls who are on it, but I would love to see lots of it more. And I wanted to know, why don't we talk about our dreams and visions and aspirations? And you guys said, one, the fear of failing at them. Maybe the idea that they might be unrealistic. The fact that people might want to compete or steal an idea from you. And then another point that was mentioned was that society puts a block on women having dreams and visions and tells them that they should be focused on marriage and kids. I'm glad that I feel like we're moving completely away from a society that does that. But some of these reasons are really, really valid as to why women don't talk about this stuff. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I've been scared of failing. I've been scared of what people are gonna say or think about me, or think about my ideas, or tell me that they're too big, or tell me why would you want that, or tell me to chill out. Can you imagine that I wouldn't talk about something, or I might not do something because of the fear of discouragement? I swear, I was discouraged from doing a YouTube channel. I was discouraged from doing so many different things. The positive side to sharing stuff is that someone probably knows something that could be helpful to you. Someone might be able to give you some insight, some information, a connect that might help propel you to where you need to go to. The Bible says, write the vision down, make it plain that he may run with it. And I find that a lot of us kind of keep thoughts in our mind with us right close to our chest. And sometimes it's very difficult to execute when you just keep everything here. But sometimes when you put it out visually and you also have accountability to deal with that issue, guess what? someone is going to keep you going. There are going to be people out there in your life who actually remember what you said you wanted to do and remind you of your dream when you're not in a great place. That is the value of sharing. And also, it's great to just bounce ideas off of people. Not everyone's going to agree with what you want to do. You can't have yes men all the time. But even talking about it regularly makes it even more real. You got to keep it in your mind, but you got to keep it in your mouth, and you've got to put it on paper. You want ish to happen? Let it out into the atmosphere, people. Let it out. So next up, it was the confidence to speak up more. And this is something that happens in so many different industries. I find that a lot of us, not me, I'm not a wallflower. I'm not a very quiet woman. I'm not gonna lie. I ruffle feathers, and that's just my personality type. But in general, there are times where I've been very, very silent, very, very quiet when there's been injustices that have happened to me, very, very quiet when I wasn't sure that something was right, even as loud and as confident as I am. That can happen across the board to men and women, but I think it's something that we do a lot more. And I've seen over and over again where not speaking up isn't that beneficial. And so I asked you guys, why do you think that we do that? A really positive point actually that someone made was that sometimes being quiet actually sends a clear message, which I actually love the ideas. You don't have to speak on everything. Someone said the patriarchy and the fact that we feel inferior or that our opinions are inferior. There's a fear of backlash or scrutiny. Also, some people's past trauma have told them that speaking up is not the right thing to do. Cultural pressures when it comes to women and speaking up. And also there's the fear of being silent. To be honest, some of you guys, oh wow, it's like so smart. Like honestly, I feel like I've got the smartest followers. I love this. This is the ish that just makes my fanny tingle. I love it. As I mentioned earlier on, that speaking up, especially when there is injustice, imbalance, you might be being wronged or someone else might be being wronged, is really important. And I do think that the way you speak up makes a huge difference, but it's really, really hard. I found that, I'm an emotional person. Like, tears are out my eye. Like, one tear is coming out when I'm talking. I don't know why. I don't need to cry, but tears roll out my eyes. And I used to be very embarrassed. And, there is an embarrassment around, just crying. Why are you crying? That's so girly. Oh, you're not strong. I realized that it was very important to accept that my emotions and how I want to talk come out in that way. I'm so animated and loud and scream and rah, rah, rah. That is who I am. It's okay to be who you are. It's okay to communicate in the way that works for you. However, you have to understand that someone else might perceive it in a different way. So learning how to get your message out is something that takes practice and it takes work, but should still be done. Sometimes when you speak up, you are able to change the situation, and other people might be thinking the same thing. Some people might have the same problem. Some people might be dealing with it, but because no one said anything, it just stays the way it is. Status quo is not a way that things should be. Change is important, and it takes talking for it to be done. So I also thought that physical issues and body insecurities was something that we don't talk up about that much. But I feel like actually this is probably an assumption I've got wrong. I am loving seeing the fact that women are talking about their physical issues and their body insecurities a lot more. Is this across the board? Not entirely. Are we completely there? No, not really. And also, men don't talk about this stuff as much. I don't know if they think about it as much as we do, but I definitely know that it is an issue for us lovely ladies. And some of the reasons that you guys brought up was difficulty in communicating issues, not wanting to be judged, not wanting to highlight your flaws, embarrassment, shame, taboos, fear of being misunderstood, being seen as weak, and also the social media standards that are set. Listen, the pressure to be perfect is real. The pressure to look perfect is so real. However, that doesn't mean that we don't have insecurities and that we also need to live up to those. I think the whole point of being able to talk about your body insecurities or your physical issues actually allows you to deal with them straight up. If you have them, you can either do something about them or accept them. But if there is this element of, well, I'm not going to bring it up, it's hard to do something about it mentally or even physically. And it's also quite important to see if anybody else feels the same way. And what you'll probably find is lots of people feel the exact same way about those body issues and those hang-ups. I found that body insecurities, body hang-ups is like a permanent thing. Like it's literally there forever. I've had tweets, nips, tucks, needles. I've had it all. And there's still something I'm like, don't like that, don't like that. Now I realize that a lot of it is in the mind. They're there, but the impact of them is in the mind. And the fact that I can say that now and say, would I still have some nips and tucks? Probably. Then after having nips and tucks, would I be like, I still want to change this? Probably as well. So the more that I have this conversation and tell people about this, the more I'm actually able to realize that it's in my head and I might not need to do something about it. Body issues should be talked about because guess what? We all have them. Thin, fat, short, tall, able-bodied, unable-bodied. We've all got something that we're like, I don't like this, whatever. And I wanted to end on a slightly lighter note. I wanted to talk about cheat codes and tips in beauty and fashion. Those girls who are out there, I hate this, when you're like, I love that outfit, right? And they go, thank you. Where'd you get that from? Oh, this old thing. No, that is new, babe. Where's it from? Share the deets. Out here like you've got literally launch codes for Russia. Like, stop. People really don't want to share that information, but it has changed obviously in the day of social media and YouTubers like me who are like, listen, I got this treatment. My fanny got waxed here and it was amazing. I got this treatment here and it was awful. My dress is ripped apart. I love that we're in this day and age, and I do think we are talking about it more. But you'll definitely find that there are people who out there who don't want to tell you nothing. What are the reasons why some of us don't like to share that stuff? People mention that it's competitiveness. Everyone can't win. Wanting to be different and unique, which I completely understand. If you're wearing something and then someone wants to wear the exact same outfit and turn up at the event that you're at in the same outfit, I can imagine how that might cramp someone's style. Not being given credit for what you've created, especially when it comes to style, that is a big thing that happens. Women being greedy and insecure and wanting to have an advantage above others. Do you know what? And reading some of those responses, I can't even be mad. I completely understand that. But I will say that sharing is caring and we can all win together. If you are able to stop someone from making a bad purchase or getting a bad treatment or looking effed up on their wedding day, if you've got the power to have that knowledge, there's nothing wrong with giving it out, in my opinion. But I get it, like if you're trying to be unique, then fine. But in the same breath, like no one can ever be you. No one can ever take your shine. So share. I feel like people who share more are actually more popular. And I think there's some like social studies around that. People who talk more and like people more and give people information, those are the ones that are way more popular. And I know a few people who always give me the deets and I love them for it. And I'm always like thinking about, yes, that girl, she always knows the information. One of my PR friends, I now use her nail person. I ordered the same food box she ordered because she told me about it and she looks absolutely amazing. Someone told me about who does their eyelashes. I now go and get my eyelashes done with them and it's changed my life. And I feel like I've also done the same when I've done my clothing reviews because I just wanted no one out there to waste their time or their coin. So I just think it's valuable to do that, but I get it. You want to be unique, but unique, let's think about it. The beginning of unique is you. You're you, okay? No one can take your shine. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. I wanted to do like a sit down, like chatty video and talk about, you know, the things that we don't necessarily talk about. And I will say that, you know, some of my things are wide assumptions, which is why I opened the floor to hear what people had to say. I'd love to hear what else you guys think that we don't necessarily talk about and that we should talk about more. There were a lot more comments in relation to like sexuality actually and feelings and emotions, and I think that it's something we should really explore further. If you are following me on my Instagram or if you're not following my Instagram, come over, hit me up in the DMs. It's okay, we can have these conversations. I love it. So I have my page linked, but in the meantime I will catch you all later. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.